Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. This is Albane. So it's nice to have you, Albane, today. Just before we start, so maybe we are going to wait for a few minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes, just to get everyone in the party. So maybe I'm gonna just switch that. Yeah, making it this way, just much better. Do you want to say something, Albane?
Yes, hello everyone. I can't actually see who is here and who is not, but we'll probably be able to see the question, so that's good. And very happy to be here today.
Yeah, it's nice to have you for at least once. Yeah,
For once, you are not alone.
Yeah, I'm not alone, which is quite special for me. So maybe so one thing that just to we have like 30 seconds delay with LinkedIn. So if you're like hearing that, so in just like 30 seconds, feel free to ask all your questions like during this session, this demo day session. Don't be shy. Any question are like really welcome. So yeah, it's pretty good. We can't like use the chat system, so we can't respond through the chat. So we respond like vocally, and that's it, I guess. So I'm just going to watch and see. All right. Okay, so I can see. Hello René. Hello Eric. It's good to have you. Oh, hello Morgan Perry. Yeah, I know you. Okay, so maybe we can start just like smoothly. And here we are. We can just show the slide. So maybe it's up to you, Albane, if you want to make like the first slides, and then I will jump just to present obviously Qovery.
Yeah, sure. So the purpose of this demo day is to actually show you what our team built in the past months, and maybe to show you a little bit more how to use the new features that we have, because we have a lot of cool features, but maybe you don't know how to use them, or maybe you don't even know that they exist. So the goal is to really show you everything that we have, everything that is super exciting, and also to give you a little bit of insight on what is coming as well, because we have a lot of exciting things coming that we will talk to you about later. So we will do that every month at I think it's the first Thursday of the month. And yes, so this is us. So Romaric, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. I don't know if you need to.
Yeah.
Or if you already.
Yeah, maybe I don't need to, but let's do it. So I'm Romaric, CEO and co-founder of Qovery. I'm an engineer myself. I like building this company for 2 years now, and super pleased to be here.
And I'm Albane. So I joined Qovery in August as a PO. And after getting a better understanding of the product, so product owner, and after getting a better understanding of the product, I shift to product marketing manager. So now you can probably see me writing more article. I was writing the changelog since the beginning. I still do it. And so now I'm going to be a bit more present on the customer side rather than being on the developer side. But the good thing is I know the product quite well. So hopefully I can help you like knowing all the feature and all of that. So this is the agenda of the day. So first, Romaric, I think you will explain to us what is Qovery for the people that still don't know what it is.
Yeah, even if like almost like anyone know about it, but just refreshing and reminding what we are doing is quite like relevant. So yes, I will do that. And maybe just presenting like the other part of the agenda. So just talking about what we've built so far during the last month, which is super important. We try to keep like a high pace. So we delivered a couple of great features during the last weeks. And we'll show, and the idea of this session is also making a quick demo of a new feature that we have launched during the last week. So the multi-cluster one will be the one. And we talk about what we are going to do next, planning next. So yeah. All right. So yeah, do you deploy your application on AWS? It's like the question that we are asking all the time, because if you don't know Qovery, maybe you can know that Qovery is the missing product of AWS. It's an application that you install on your AWS account just to help you to deploy your application in a very seamless way on top of your AWS. Qovery is not a hosting platform, so that's something that you install on it. And then from that, you just need to pick the repository that you want to deploy, the different services that you want to use, and then from that, starting to deploy and ship your application. We have great features like the preview environments. You can configure the network and extend the solution, build on top of that. But I'm not going to dig into those details today. And today, the platform is used by more than 20,000 developers around the world, so which is like quite nice. It's like very common problem, even if you're speaking French or Chinese or English, you can use the platform because the developers all around the world work the same way. Basically, we provide the solution that is covering all the needs of the developers, meaning after the development side, obviously. So we manage the build part, the deployment, run, and the scale of your application on top of AWS, for instance. And the experience is very similar to what you can get with a platform like Netlify, Vercel, or AOQ, but on top of your AWS account. All right, it's your turn, Albane.
Yeah. So last month we built a lot of feature. If you look at the changelog, I think I can say that in the last month there is like 10 to 15 features that were developed, but obviously we don't have days tonight, so we will not talk about all the features that we developed. We are going to talk about 3 main features that are probably the most exciting that we did in the last months, and that will probably be quite useful for you. So the first one is the Qovery Terraform provider. So this one is very good if you want to keep track of the changes across the configuration of your cluster, application, and database. I think, Romaric, you did already quite a lot of advertising around it. There is some article that you can look at in the Qovery blog. I think you also did some video about it. But yeah, this feature is definitely one of the biggest that we did in the last months. Another one is the preview environment. So preview environment is amazing if, for example, you want to test the changes in one of your team main pull requests, or you want to validate a new feature that is about to be released, or, for example, if there is an urgent fix that need to be done very fast. So if you don't know about it, a preview environment is an ephemeral environment associated with a lifecycle of a pull request. So it makes it super simple to validate the change in a pull request by anyone in your team. And these changes are tested in isolation before merging the branch of the original one. So you don't pollute other integration environments. And the last feature we're going to talk about is multi-cluster, but I'm not going to talk too much about it because Romaric is going to make a great demo about it, so you can see what it's all about and how you can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Albane. And maybe just like before getting into the multi-cluster part, yeah, the preview environment feature is like a very nice one. And it's not only duplicating the application, but also the different services, the secret, and so on and so forth. I've made already like tons of videos concerning that feature. Probably I will do other like videos because we are going to enhance and improve that part in the coming months. But yeah, still, for the multi-cluster is super related also to the preview environment, because every single environment that you're creating with Qovery, you can select the cluster that you want to use for that preview environment, for instance, or this environment. So let me share my screen. All right. So I'm going to zoom a bit just to make it maybe better. Yeah, can you see it correctly? Yeah, I guess yes, it's okay. So this is the Qovery web interface. So you're probably like familiar with the interface. Basically, all the steps and all the things that I'm doing now through the web interface are doable from the API directly or from the Terraform provider. And basically, when you are like in an organization, so the organization is a concept that you have where you can, from one single place, manage your different projects on top of your infrastructure. And what is nice is that when you get access to Qovery for the first time, you have to connect to what we call the cluster, your cloud account. So you can have multiple cloud accounts associated to one organization. And you can have also multiple clusters, so associated to your organization. But before jumping into the details of maybe what is like a cluster, so behind the scene, you have to understand that Qovery is leveraging like the services of your cloud provider, the AWS. And you know, on AWS and other cloud providers, you have this famous service that is Kubernetes. And to run the compute workload, we are using Kubernetes behind the scene. Okay. So basically, when you add a cluster with Qovery and you click here, then you will have the ability to select your cloud region, your cloud provider, and the region that you want to use and where you want to install your cluster. And the cluster is a Kubernetes one. Okay. So here I'm not gonna get into all the details, but basically it's just giving a name to this is a cluster, giving a name to the cluster, the cloud provider, the region that you want to use, associated the credentials. So you can have multiple credentials. You can even choose like different accounts. So it would work the same way. Select different options, and then from that, creating your cluster. Okay. I have already prepared, obviously, because it takes approximately 30 minutes to install one cluster one by one, or we can install them like all together, but it takes at least 30 minutes. And here I have my development cluster, my production, and staging one. So you can see I have 3 different clusters that are running on the same region, so US East 2 into the same cloud account. But I would be able to choose even like another cloud region. It would work exactly the same. And exactly what we have here with the step cluster, which is running into, not running because it's only created and not deployed, but it's on US East 1. Obviously, because it's Kubernetes, so behind the scene, you can manage the typologies, so the number of nodes that you want. So you have the auto-scaling part, the RAM that you can configure to your node, and the CPU per node, okay? So I'm not gonna get into the details of how Kubernetes works and what is the concept of a node, but basically a node is a VM instance, so it's an EC2 instance that is here just to host the compute that you will deploy, so the application that you will deploy. And multiple applications can be deployed on one node, and it's managed automatically, so the repartition is managed automatically by Kubernetes, which is the scheduler managing those resources for you. Okay, so this is great. I have my 3 clusters that are running, and now what I'm going to show you is that we can very easily like manage and start deploying our applications across those different clusters. And to do that, I've prepared this morning a new environment that is already running with multiple applications. So you can see that I have a backend, a worker, a PostgreSQL databases that are all running all together into one environment. So this is the production environment that is already running. And all those elements are like connected to each other. So basically, behind the scene, so what you have to understand is that an environment, if you look at the Kubernetes level, an environment is just like a namespace, but it's also associated to different resources. And they are completely isolated, and they can talk to each other through the internal network, okay? So here I have my backend, my worker, and my PostgreSQL database. By the way, the Postgre one is a container. So this container is also running on Kubernetes. But if I wanted to add a managed database like RDS instance, it's also like possible. It will work exactly the same. And the network configuration will be handled by Qovery, and it's automatically done for you. But so my production cluster is running here. If I want to start to duplicate, so my applications are running, so that's great. I can get access to them. Hello, Qovery team. I have a temporary domain that is associated. The TLS is working. I can get access to the logs, all those things. Okay, it's very convenient, very easy to do. If you want to start now creating, let's say that yeah, I have my production like cluster that is running. It's great. It's running on my production cluster here. And I want to duplicate the staging environment. I want to get the production. I want to get the staging environment from that production. How do you do? With Qovery, you have a feature that is very convenient for that. You have the clone feature. The clone feature will help to duplicate all the services, all the resources, not only the application, but also the database, the secrets, the network configuration, so on and so forth. And here, when you select the clone feature, when you want to say, hey, I want to clone that environment, what you can do is selecting the cluster. So basically, I have all my clusters that are available here, and I can say, hey, I want to use the staging cluster. I want to use the staging cluster, and I want also like to indicate that the mod is a staging one. And then from that, in just one step, I have duplicated my workload. So here I have not only one environment that is running, but I have also the staging one. And both are running into their own cluster, okay? So here, now, if I want to start and deploy, I can see that my application, so all my applications are going to be deployed into my cluster. So you see in one click, you can duplicate a workload, a complete workload, from one cluster to the other. So that's exactly what we did. But not only that, so everything is going to be managed and deployed correctly by Qovery. From that, what you can do is also, you see that we had 3 clusters. We had the production, the staging, and we have the dev. So very cool feature, and that's why it's super related to the preview environment one. One very cool feature that we have is that for every single pull request with the preview environment, if you turn on that feature, for every pull request that you create by turning on this, the preview environment one, you will get a new environment that will be associated. And what Qovery will do, you can configure that, and I'm going to show you with the deployment rule, is by creating what we call a deployment rule. You can say, hey, I want to have all my development, all the new pull requests that I'm creating, I want to have those pull requests targeted. So deploying all those new applications into that cluster. So here, I've selected the dev cluster, and I've put the wildcard, which is indicating that every single new pull request that will be created will be redirected into that dev cluster. What does that mean? It means that if you start to have your production, your staging, and development environment, obviously you don't want to use the production cluster or the staging one to develop your new feature. So you will be able to route dynamically with Qovery the workload that is created depending on this usage into the right cluster. So you can have multiple clusters as much as you want, and then from that, balancing the workload. So that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to create a new pull request just to show you. So let's edit my code. So I'm using Gitpod. I don't know if you're familiar with Gitpod, but it's a very cool tool. So this is my web ID, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is basically I'm going to create a new branch. So let's say it's a feature that I'm working on. Let's say it's a feature feed billing for Qovery demo. I don't know if there's like a billing feature that I need to, but so yes. So let's dig into the templates, and what I'm gonna do is just changing some like one part of the code, and let's say it's hello, this is a new PR billing. So I'm just changing basically the title. So here I have my title for that page in the production environment, and what I'm gonna do here is just changing the title. So I'm on the new pull request, and what I can do is basically committing, so making say, hey, this is core change title for this new commit. Okay, it's just committing basically the change that I made. Then I push the change. Yes. And then from that, if you go back, if I go into GitLab, because it's associated to GitLab, what I can do is creating a new pull request. So it's a merge request. That's what they call a merge request. On GitHub, you have the pull request. on GitLab, you have the merge request. It's exactly the same. And here, what I can do is just basically, obviously, I can change the title and put a description. Hey, this is a new PR. Can you check that change, please? Okay. So I didn't create it yet, this pull request, the merge request. I've just prepared it. And before I created it, I just want to show you that here, you see, there is only still my production and the staging environment that are running, nothing else, okay? I've set, so if I go back here, I've set what we call a deployment rule. By the way, I think it's targeting and I don't know why it's changing all the time, but anyway. I created this deployment rule that is going to target the right cluster, so not the production cluster, and targeting the right cluster just to deploy the new pull request. But obviously, if I go back to the production environment, I've also turned on the preview environment feature, which is very important, okay? So here, what I'm gonna do is just creating that merge request. I think I'm good. And the merge request has been created. What will happen now is that, yes, I have my new environment that has been created. So you see, it's not only two environments, so the production and the staging, but also the new, so also this new environment. And here, so something happened, I don't know what, but it doesn't want to change, obviously, that deployment rule. So maybe I should like to change and create it, but it targeted the staging environment, the staging cluster, and you see that my production is completely now isolated. So the production is running here, and this pull request is running into the staging cluster. So it's deployed at the moment. And what will happen with that feature, so you can choose exactly when you create a new environment where this environment is going to run. You can also choose for every single pull request that you create where each preview environment is going to run. And obviously, when you use the pull request and the preview environment feature, when you merge that pull request, then the environment will automatically disappear. So you see from one single interface, in a few minutes, you can just right away use multiple cluster, Kubernetes cluster on top of AWS and leveraging the cloud. So yeah, I think it's good for me. Maybe do we have any questions? Any questions so far?
Not that I can see of. Also, so Romaric made a great demo of multi-cluster. But if you want to know more about why you should use a multi-cluster, for example, or anything about multi-cluster, I think we are starting to have quite a bit of information about it in the blog as well. So if you feel like you want to have a look a little bit later or look at a demo later, we have quite a lot of things about multi-cluster too. So, and we should have more in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of information, and you can have multiple use cases where you can need to have different clusters. For instance, we have customers that are using multi-clusters for isolating their environment, for instance, the production, staging, development environment. But we have also the use cases of customers that are working, for instance, in the healthcare industry, where they need to isolate every single customer that they have into their own resources. So it's a physical isolation that they are looking for, so which is very convenient by using that feature. So it means that for every single customer that you're managing, you can have a dedicated infrastructure isolated into one VPC, one physical clusters, and so on and so forth, and from one single interface managing all of them. So it's very convenient. We have also one of the use case, which is basically you have your development R&D team that is working in Europe or in Asia, and you may want to have something that is as close as possible in terms of development cluster for them. Then using a development cluster in other regions makes total sense, and it's where the production can run anywhere else. So this is where from one single interface, it's very convenient to use. All right. It's all good for me. We can go back.
Yeah. So now let's talk about what is coming in the next few weeks. So we have a lot of new feature coming, but on the top of that, we have quite a new exciting project as well, which is, I don't think we're going to talk about it straight away, but it's kind of in the same vibe. So we have the advanced setting. I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit more, Romaric.
Of course, of course. Advanced settings is like a very important feature that is going to be launched very soon, which is basically with Qovery, you have and everything is open. So you have the engine and you can dig into the details of how the things work. By the way, so I can just share my screen again. If you get into the engine, you will see that everything is open source here. So you can get into the details of the configuration that we're making and the default choices that we make for you. But obviously it's not a one size fits all. It's when we decide for you what parameter we should use, maybe you may want to change something. For instance, we have the auto scaling part. The auto scaling part is when you auto scale, so you put more instances of your applications depending on one parameters, and these parameters most of the time is the CPU and the memory consumption. And by default, Qovery set this value to 60%. So it means that if your application is consume the CPU at more than 60% for 5 minutes, then the autoscaler will spin up a new pod, a new instance for you, and then managing this workload. But obviously, maybe you want to change that parameter, the 60% to 70, 50, 40%. And those advanced settings are exactly made for that purpose, letting you just get into the details of setting up every single parameter that you want, because behind the scene, we are not hiding anything. It's open source, and you can get access to those details. If you need to have like a bigger load balancer because we are setting something that is not exactly what you want, then you can change that parameter. If you want to set maybe keep the TCP connections longer than the default value that we provide, then same. If you want to use, I don't know, one new option into the Docker engine that is used to build your application, then you can change that parameter and so on and so forth. So you can understand exactly what this feature is made for. Yeah.
Yeah, and then other than that, we have the V3. I think we already started to talk about it very briefly, but not that much. So it's probably the right moment to announce it publicly, let's say. So Romaric, I think everyone probably wants to know why a V3 now and not later. Yeah,
Yeah.
explain us everything about it.
Yeah, nothing very like official yet, because we are still working on that feature, that version of the platform. So we built so Qovery does exist for now 2 years. We have launched the V2 last year, and now we are working on what we call the V3, which is like completely open source, and I'm sharing the repository right now that you can obviously start on. Basically, this version is made to bring like much more transparency on the platform. How does it work, and make it creating like a better flow, user flow, making sure that the solutions can be used by anyone and with guidance. It's very important for us because today the platform is very cool, very easy to use, but in terms of transparency, you can miss like some information. That's exactly what we want to bring with this new version. So the V3 is going to come probably in beta in June. We are working on very hardly. We maintain the V2, and at the same time, you can also like contribute to that version and take a look at what we have built so far. Yeah.
Yes, and then well, so as Romaric was saying, on the top of working on the V3, it's basically at the moment I would say that half of the team is working on the V3, and the rest of our team is still working on very important features that we still need on the V2. And inside this one, there is a webhook, a cron job, which is quite expected, I think, and the preview environment URL in PR. There is more than that, but these are the three main features that are the most expected, I would say. So yeah, so that's why maybe there is less less thing to show at the moment on the upcoming changelog, but it's also because we are working on this v3 at the same time, so the team is really split into those two things. But I guess all of those cool features, we'll probably talk about it more in depth in the next demo day, because we will probably be able to present them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and maybe before just leaving, and thanks Alban for like organizing all of that. I just want to make like a small ad because like it's not directly related to, but we are building a very cool tool for like our customers that is probably like super useful for everyone in this room, especially developers. Did you face the case where, and I'm explaining all of that, and maybe you're like already familiar with that tool because I've made the promotions during last weeks and last days, but it's basically Replibyte, which is an open source tool that makes sure that you can synchronize your cloud database with each other. And very cool features that you can get from that is because we all need, as developers, getting access to the database, to production database data, and we may want to make some tests with those data, but sometimes it's quite like sensitive. It's quite difficult because you have like sensitive information that are integrated into it, and you may want to like just keep those sensitive information safe. You just want maybe hiding like all those informations. And with Replibyte, you can synchronize like a cloud production database, making like a development copy by hiding like those sensitive information. And we are working on that, that product that will be integrated into Qovery at some point. For our customers and users, any companies, any like developers needs to have access to those production data into development environment and making tests with real data. So that's exactly made on that purpose. If you're like interested, you can just take a look at the Qovery. So it's on GitHub into the Qovery account, Replibyte. You can get access to it. It's accessible on macOS, Linux, Windows. You can even use it with your own Docker file if you don't want to install the binary. And then it's very like a pleasant to use and very useful one. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about it at the end. Thank you, Alban.
And I think that if people want to see more, are you still doing live Twitch about it?
Yes, I did, but during the last day, it was like quite complex, a lot of work, so I didn't have the time. I tried to do some Twitch during the weekend, so if you're interested to get to know how we are building that tool, I'm building it in public with like a few contributors, open source contributors, and you can get access to my Twitch through the end of via the end of the README. So you have access to that, the live sessions, and you can just see back the record. It's very useful, especially if you want to, if you're interested to learn more about Rust, how to use it, and yeah, that's very very interesting one, at least for me. Thanks, Albert. Yeah. So maybe it's allez. Maybe it's a good time to just leave us. I don't know if you want to add something else, Alan.
No, I think that's it for me.
That's perfect. Sounds good. It's like 30 minutes. It's perfect time. I really love when it's like not too long. Like 30 minutes for me, it's just perfect. If you have any questions, like in the meantime, if you want to get contact with us, then you can use hello@qovery.com. We are also hiring. So if you're interested to join like a very successful and super company, then you can just ping us, obviously. Or you can ping me on the LinkedIn. Yeah, that's it for me. It's a very good time to just go to rest. And I have a party just after, so I'm super happy. Thank you, Alban.
Thanks. See you.
Thank you. See you. Bye. Ciao.
Bye.